There aren't many games out there that make me feel the way Insomniac's Spider-Man games do. The first game was such an unexpected surprise that it brought me to tears, hype, and happiness. And that's why whenever I'm asked what my favorite game of all time is, which, let's be honest, there's no real answer, it's a hard question. There's just too many amazing games out there to enjoy, and it's hard to pick a favorite. But if I'm really pushed for an answer, I tell people that it's Insomniac's Spider-Man. But now that question's changed. Everybody knows I love Spider-Man. The new question is, which one's my favorite now? 1 or 2? And I have an answer. But before we get to it, I have to say this. Spider-Man 2 does not meet my expectations at all. It surpasses them. Spider-Man 2 evolves the first game in almost every way. Almost. The gameplay remains very much the same, down to the animations and finishes, with a few new ones mixed in. And while the combat does feel like a copy and paste when you first start playing it, they quickly add more and more to make it feel fresh again. While Peter having the symbiote and Miles having evolved Venom powers, Insomniac do a great job evolving the combat rather than playing it safe. They had many aspects, such as a fully fledged out skill tree for both Spider-Man, Miles, and Peter, and one combination tree for the both of them. Here, you can level up special abilities and some combos. The aerial combos are well diverse and make the game feel fresh. Not to mention, you have gadgets that you don't have to pause the game in order to switch this time. It's seamless and keeps the gameplay fast and fluid. Something that has changed is the combo meter. In PS4 and Miles, you were able to decide when you would use a finisher or you would sacrifice some of your meter in order to heal yourself. This is here, but it's slightly different. In the first 2 games, you could heal at any time as long as the meter had some energy in it. Now, in order to heal, the meter must be completely full before you can do it, which is fine. It's just a weird change that makes me approach combat a little bit differently. Almost like they changed it in order to slow the player down and have them think a bit more. I just wish I could heal when I wanted to. Speaking of both the symbiote and venom powers, there are 8 for each character, but you can only equip 4 at a time, giving the player a small amount of customization to play around with. Each character also has a sort of super ability that they can activate when the counter meter is full. Another new addition to the combat is a parry system. As the danger indicator turns red, you can press a button that allows you to parry damage and knock back the attacking enemy, giving you some needed breathing room, especially towards the end of the game. You will need to know how to parry. It's a little bit tricky to get the hang of at the start, but quickly becomes muscle memory, and it's really needed for most of the boss fights. Let's talk about the map. With it mostly being the same with a little bit of an expanded area, I thought it would get repetitive really fast roaming around the city, having played both PS4 and Miles for hours and hours before jumping into this. But with the addition of gliding and little upgrades to swinging, as well as extremely lightning quick fast travel, that to be honest, I didn't really use due to having so much fun getting around the city anyway, I honestly didn't even think the city felt the same. But it also felt very familiar, which is great. I feel the addition of Queens and Brooklyn also really made the game's map feel fresh. Traversal is still really impressive and smooth. A Spider-Man game's traversal is probably the most important thing you have to get right, and they nailed it in the first game. And guess what? They nailed it here. It's improved upon and still really fun. I will definitely have to keep the game installed just to swing around as Spider-Man every now and again to recoup from the stresses of the day. Collectibles for us Platinum Hunters is back, but this time there aren't as many as the first game, and I think they're even more rewarding, as most, if not all, offer a small little side quest once completed, which can lead to an awesome interaction or cutscene, making every single collectible in this game absolutely worth your time. In terms of side missions in general though, there aren't that many, which I think is a good thing, as they all feel a lot bigger than a side quest normally would. Not going into spoilers, but some of these side quests involve some of the most important Spider-Man characters, and they really did need that time to breathe that I don't think they would have gotten if the game was overfilled with side quests. So, well done to Insomniac. They did a great job of filling the world with fun and cool stuff to do, and just the right amount of it. The graphics are an S-tier level. You can see the fine detail in the suits and characters. Each scene in the world had great textures. It's the best looking New York City in gaming. Face detail is well done during cutscenes, and you can feel the gravity of all the characters' emotions. Every single facial movement felt real and accurate. So many moments of silence in cutscenes still had weight due to the facial expressions feeling so real. The lighting is done very well, from the lens flare during a swing session during the day to the lights illuminating from buildings and cars during the night. The game is an excellent example of the power of the PlayStation 5 and what it's capable of. Now let's talk story. We're not going to get into spoilers, but it's hard to talk about this game without touching on the story, the amazing story. The story was phenomenal. It answered all the questions from the previous titles, new villains are introduced to the game, and they are all interesting and varied in their backstories. Spider-Man 2 features a number of new enemies such as the Hunters, Sandmen, and Symbiotes. There is a boss tied to each of these new enemy types as well. Some bosses will take you by surprise by who they are and how the fight unfolds. The number of bosses in the game also feels great. It's a great amount, not too many, just enough to bring some new challenge to you and make you think about the fight. The fights are like Dark Soul fights. They have stages where the boss will change up how they're going to fight you about halfway through, mixing it up and bringing a whole new challenge for you to face. The boss fights are really well done and a lot of fun. Each villain gets their own story, and Insomniac respects the source material while putting their own spin on things that would not feel out of place in a modern day Spider-Man comic, and to be honest, some of them get even better stories. A lot of the game does focus on Peter over Miles, but I feel it makes sense with the story Insomniac is trying to tell here. Now, Miles isn't ignored or feels left out at all, it's just Peter is the lead, and this makes sense for a few reasons. One is, a lot of Spider-Man stories rely on Peter's relation to the villain, and when the story you're trying to tell is the symbiote story, you really do need to focus on him. And second, Miles has just had his own game that focuses entirely on him and his story, so it feels good to have a return to Peter. All in all, Insomniac Games brings the duo together to bring a fun, serious, action-packed, heartfelt game that covers all aspects of the universe and does justice not just to the villains in the world, but both of the Spider-Men. My only small complaint about the game is the suits are just not overly great. There are some standout suits that I really love, but I feel like if you take out the suits that carry over for the first game, which doesn't seem like enough, I just feel like they didn't add enough fan favorite hype suits, and they put in a lot of mid suits. Now, they will most likely add more suits as time goes on, much like they did with the first game, but to be honest, if my only complaint is about the suit selection, I think I can get over it. Now, Spider-Man 2 in my opinion is an amazing game, one of the best games I've ever played. I loved every minute of my time with the game, and I'm sure I'll be making a return to it in the future, if not to replay the entire thing, then just to swing around the breathtaking city. From the hype as hell swing to take down Sandman to the emotional final swing as I popped the platinum after a story that hit me to my core and made me feel emotions I hadn't felt since the first game. There are not many games out there that can make a person feel these things, and Insomniac Spider-Man games just do it for me. So when I'm asked in the future what my favorite game of all time is, I will answer Insomniac Spider-Man. Easy. And when they say which one, I can happily say without a shadow of a doubt, all of them. On the 1-up scale, I give Spider-Man 2 a 10 out of 10.